Welcome back to your weekly dose of motivation, brought to you by the Motivating Force podcast. You're listening to Josue, an aspiring Marine Corps officer who is finishing up ROTC and working towards his bachelor's in criminal justice. And myself, Justin, a motivational speaker who's always excited to share our new ideas and topics with you. We are both highly motivated individuals who love to question everything and share some rather unique viewpoints with all of our listeners.
This week, we're going to challenge the concept of multitasking. We will not only be hitting some of the pros and cons of this, but also giving some recommendations to help you determine how to acquire and use this skill appropriately. So let's get this fire lit
and get motivated.
All right, everybody. So before we get into the pros and cons of multitasking itself, we're changing up our formula this episode, where it's not going to be that problem solution kind of scenario. It's going to be more of just general information, give you the whole runaround of what pros and cons multitasking has. And then we're going to be giving some recommendations because it's just a skill that you can learn to improve over time. So before we get into the pros and cons, we're going to preface a little bit and we're going to talk about time. Because time is undoubtedly the most precious resource we have. It's not renewable, and for some reason we just absolutely love to waste it. And I think it's because we don't know how much of it we have. You just let time fly, do all these different things, and before you know, time's gone, and you have to move on to something else. Like your work week. You think you get so much done, and next thing you know, it's Friday. But with our society growing, with technology the way it is, I think a lot of this stems from the fact that our technology is evolving so fast that it's able to multitask all of these things so much for us. And we think that our brains are able to keep up with that. So the way that like your phone can calculate things, keep things on a calendar, give you an alarm, do all these different things, you think you can have that memory span off the bat. Do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, people hate to admit that we are still simple creatures. Granted, we're able to make these advances and make these awesome, amazing things, but just because we can design something that can do multiple things at once, like even just your cell phone, right?
Yeah.
That's still not altering your brain. We can make things that do that, but we can't do that ourselves.
I think since we get that idea or the understanding of being able to do so much at once, we can break that down to a formula to put into the phone or computer or whatever it is that we're using, but there's no formula to input that into ourselves.
Right.
Yeah.
And actually using that cell phone example, it's a little cut into where the first usage of the word multitask comes from, which was actually used by IBM in 1965 to describe their computer software. And ever since then, of course, we've been trying to apply it to human tasks and what we do. But the word really does actually come from our ability to make these technological advances.
Yeah, like they coined it? Is that what they meant by that? They coined the word multitask?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. That's the first time we've seen it used. So in that regard, when we take multitasking to people, we see largely, it's largely suggested that multitasking doesn't work. But what they mean by this is that multitasking doesn't work the way that people think it does. Your cell phone or your computer can do multiple things at one time, whereas we can't. We can only do one thing at a time. But speaking in that aspect of time, we can switch between tasks. So when we start doing that a little faster, we have 2 or 3 things going on in any specific amount of time, right? Not necessarily at the exact same time, but say over the time span of 10 minutes, right? You're trying to do dishes and cook some food and you're keeping in your mind the laundry's going and all these things, right?
Yeah, because it's like what you said, we're simple creatures. We can't literally do these 2 things at once.
Yeah. But we're able to make the skill side of it is making that rapid switching of the 2 things you're trying to accomplish happen and being able to do that more and more effectively.
Yeah.
Which of course covers our pros and cons when we get into it. So with that being the real applicable version of multitasking, and that's how we're defining it here, is that rapid switching of tasks, because it's what it is.
Yeah.
That in itself is still highly debated whether it's useful or not, which is why we didn't go with the problem solution route with this. because, you have a whole bunch of information on one side that speaks so hard against it, and then vice versa. What I want to ask you is, upon everything we've done here, coming up with the content we have today, do you think it's worth it to be multitasking?
All right, so that's a great question because as on previous episodes, we are kind of always butting heads on our opinions of things. And when you said that you think it's a bad idea to multitask, I see it as it's potentially good. It has its good parts to it. It's a skill. So, of course, when you start doing it, or if you're doing it like lazily at the beginning, you're not going to be good at it. So it's going to have its downside. It's always going to be portrayed as a bad thing. But once you start actually working on your skill to multitask, hearing what the pros are, hearing what the recommendations are, I think it can generally be a good thing to have. Because in general, like, practice makes perfect.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, man, because, we do actually have a disagreement here.
Yeah.
So it's definitely going to set the mood for what we have going on today.
Hey, but that key of having an open mind, you can switch my opinion at the end of this.
Same thing, man. Same thing. And also just having a good old-fashioned argument.
Yes.
No feelings.
Hey, just don't curse at me, all right?
Yeah, of course not.
Don't hurt my feelings.
No, never. So we're going to jump right into the cons. Being the one that kind of disagrees with multitasking, even in the sense of it being a skill, and I still don't think it's a skill that we should develop. One of the most obvious cons that come up that really doesn't even take much research to come to is distractions.
Yeah.
So multitasking, it can leave you vulnerable to distractions because if you're focusing on a single task, your brain, all of your senses, you're spotlighting what you're doing. So in this vast open world, you have this laser focused vision on the single objective that you're trying to accomplish, no matter what it is, right? But so there's still room for distractions to slip into that little laser focused area that you're looking at. Whereas when you're multitasking, even though you're still switching these tasks, you're opening up your window.
Yeah.
You're opening up your field of view as you try to incorporate more than one thing going on at a time because you're trying to keep your brain focused on all of it. And with that larger window, that allows for more distractions to creep into that picture.
Yeah. I mean, I can agree with that. It's like horse blinders. You're putting those blinders on, but if you're doing more things, you are going to have to open that field of view up a little bit so you can keep your eye on the other task that you're doing at the same time.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you always want to make sure it's still kind of getting some of your effort.
Right. Yeah, you can't, if you're multitasking, you're not even going to be able to give 100% to any individual thing at a given time because your brain's still going to be somewhat focused on when is it time to switch back.
Yeah. So do you think a good switch to that would be to focus more on low energy multitasking? Or I think that's the word for it, right? Low energy tasks to multitask. So then you can work on not letting the distractions get to you. Or also if you're just a person that has ADHD or something similar where distractions are a big problem.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like with saying low energy tasks, I look at that more as low importance tasks. Something like cooking dinner and doing the dishes or whatnot are things that you can multitask because you really don't have an unfavorable outcome with that.
Yeah.
Especially when distractions come up and whatnot. Like you have more room for error, so it's okay to multitask in those situations. Whereas obviously if
you're doing like homework and an essay and some other things, you can actually get bad results from it. Distractions are a problem.
Yeah. Okay. Things that are actually measured and do have an impact on your life are probably things that, should not be multitasked.
Okay. I can agree with distractions being a problem.
You feel that? You feel what's going on there? That's good.
It's that next one, boy.
All right. Next up, we have the con of your memory, which this kind of ties into the distraction thing a little bit. But because you can't focus 100% on something, it leads to these tasks kind of clashing together in your head. So you won't have clear distinctions of what you need to remember, what you were trying to do. This can be seen more so in, say, if you're studying for something, right? Obviously, if you're trying to study, biochemistry and, I don't know, astrology at the same time, right? Yeah, you're going to mix two things together and you're going to try to, listen to a TED talk on one while you're reading a book on another thing, those ideas and thoughts are going to mix together because our thought processes and the development of your brain is built up off of something called idioms.
Yeah.
Which is really just like these memory clusters where we truly remember things by taking in all of our senses and creating a relationship with whatever it is we're trying to remember. So if we're trying to take multiple different things into our brain at one time, we're not able to use all of our senses on any one particular thing. And we're going to really mess up those idioms that we can create in our head. And a lot of times, not to get too deep into that, but our idioms are not as easily reversible as some other things, right? It's that saying where you can't teach an old dog new tricks.
Yeah.
That's part of that idea there with your idioms.
Yeah.
Once they're kind of set in your brain, you're going to continue to believe that until you make an active choice to really reverse that decision.
Yeah. Okay, so I have 2 points to make to rebuttal on this. The
All
first one is to agree, right? Because there's plenty of times where I'll be sitting with like family members or friends, and then we're watching Netflix or just some streaming service. You're trying to show them a movie or a TV show, and they're sitting there on their phone, right? And then they go, "Oh no, it's fine, I'm listening," or "I'm paying attention," right? But then when you talk to them about it, and they're like, "Oh, remember this part of the movie?" And they're like, "No, I don't remember," because they weren't paying full attention, which is to agree with what you're saying. But now, if we take the same concept, don't you think there are certain ways to study where you listen to music while you're studying, and then you associate the words on the page or whatever you're trying to remember with that music? Because I know certain people have talked about that, to listen to like calm music or like smooth jazz, and it helps you remember. Instead of listening to a full TED talk, maybe they can go a step down and just listen to like calm music to help improve their studying.
I can see where you're coming at with that. And in a way that would work. I do feel that that's super specific to studying though, because the whole idea of like listening to lo-fi or jazz while you're studying is actually to help eliminate distractions, because now you're filling up your auditory sense with just one tone instead of all the noises going on in your home. You're creating a cleaner headspace to be able to focus in on what you're doing, because that's the whole point of listening to things like jazz or lo-fi when you study. You know, you're not over there listening to hard rock or techno or something.
I mean, I am, but I'm not judging anybody.
Well, you know, it's because the music is meant to be forgotten. It's that background noise to blur out everything else, so that way you're only limited to that one distraction that your brain can pull away from. But so even in that answer there, yeah, that does kind of show an opportunity there for multitasking to be useful.
Yeah. Okay, so I moved your foot up a little bit off that being a bad thing.
Yeah, you do got me a little nervous here though, because so far every point I'm saying, you're like, yeah, no, I agree with that 100%.
Yeah. Well, no, that's what I'm saying.
So,
like, I came in saying it's a skill. You know, at first it's going to be bad. You know, there's going to be its bad sides, and there's always going to be a route for improvement.
I'm just seeing the sense of confidence here, and I'm thinking, man, I'm going to get through all this, and if I don't drive this home as soon as we get to the pros, it's going to be a downhill battle for me.
It's all going to be good for everyone.
Yeah.
Everybody should multitask 2020.
Yeah.
There we go. Multitask for president. All right.
Speaking of presidents, my next con is actually low quality results.
God damn it. Wow.
Not to be specific about anything, because by the way, at this point in time, you know, I don't know when this episode's coming up, but our presidential debate is still ongoing. There's not a set winner, so just to throw that out there.
Yeah, recording this on Halloween. If you didn't get a chance to listen to our Halloween episode, you should go do that. We are actually in costume.
Oh yeah, people on our Instagram and Facebook would be able to see that.
Yeah, go check those out. It was pretty funny.
But getting back into it here, the low quality results I don't have to explain too much on, because that is the culmination of what your distractions, the whole idea of your memory, that brain processing power, that is the result of that. That is the low quality result in the work that you're trying to do. If you're doing more than one task, you're not able to give 100% on anything. Whereas if you have this laser guided focus on something, you're going to be able to accomplish it to the best of your abilities, because all of your resources are available to you, physically, mentally, just everything, right? So you're going to have a lower quality result for both objectives, which is why how I said, like, when you're multitasking things that don't really have a big impact, like cooking dinner and doing dishes, that's okay. Because what is the low quality result of that? That's the battle between picking when you should and shouldn't multitask. But in general sense here, that low quality result would be a major issue from your day-to-day life.
No, this is the one that I was scared for you to bring up because it's the most common, and it's harder to work away from this.
Yeah.
Even with improvement, even with time and focus on the actual task of multitasking and trying to improve that skill, you're always going to have that lack of giving something 100%.
Right.
So I have to agree with you on low quality results, but with that like low importance tasks, that quality shouldn't waver as much if you get better at it. So we say low and you think it's going to be like 20%, but if it's low quality or low effort.
Well, low quality and poor quality are two separate things, right? So just low quality being that no matter how good you've completed that task, if it was done while you were multitasking, there was still an opportunity for you to do better.
Better, yeah. There's always room for
So it's not to say that you did something bad. It's just you're not going to reach that upper level.
Yeah.
When you're doing multiple things.
Yeah, I agree with that one.
Whew. All right. Not much to go off of there. That's great. That's great for me.
Yeah.
If you can't tell. Another con we can see with multitasking is misplacement of our priorities. And again, talking about your mental focus, your ability to follow through with things 100%. If you have multiple things going on and one of them did start off with a higher priority, it's really easy for you to lose sight of that. So you end up mixing these tasks together and you put them in the same importance level because you're still trying to complete them in the same time frame. So things that are not really that important to you are going to boost up a little bit. Things that are really important to you are going to kind of come down. So to meet that requirement of being able to finish all those things within the allotted time that you're giving yourself to finish those tasks.
Okay. I do see how this can be a con and how this could affect a lot of people's multitasking. But the key to change that would be if people start to realize and work on that skill itself. Because people multitask now without even trying.
Right.
Like they're just doing it because it's a normal thing to do to save time, quote unquote.
Right, there's no purpose behind it.
Yeah, so then they would naturally just throw things and blend them all together of importance. But when you actually go and sit down and plan the day, then you go, okay, I got to do this and this at the same time. Then you can actually work on making one more important, of keeping that priority list. Just my thought.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. It's definitely a con that I feel could go away. You know, I didn't feel like this one was going to be a super strong point, but as far as the average person goes, it definitely does affect them for that reason, right? A lot of people multitask.
Unintentionally?
Yeah, unintentionally. So they're going to get that issue. That's going to be a byproduct of that. And even people who are deliberately trying to practice their multitasking skills are going to suffer from this, and it's going to take a while to grow out of that. It's still a game changer for the majority of people, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's funny, we talked about the distractions as a con, right? Just to jump back to this. For the people that are looking at the Instagram clips and everything, Justin has never had a tattoo in his life. And in his costume, he has so many tattoos. So trying to do this and focus on the podcast while staring at his chest and his neck tattoos, it's something else.
My full chest piece going on. Yeah, let me fluff up the shirt there.
Oof.
Yeah.
Kill him.
All right, we're good. Keep my chest puffed out. Man, you guys really gotta see what we're talking about here. If anything, just to see the pictures. It's great. I knew it was gonna get you guys. I loved it, man. When I opened up that door and just had that smile on my face, waiting for that reaction. Lino's jaw was on the floor.
On the floor.
It was great.
Yeah. All right, so you got one more point for me, right?
You know, your costume really isn't that distracting to me. You kind of look
normal.
Kind of look normal. You're just a big old nerd.
Big old thick nerd.
Yeah.
Thickums.
Yeah, it's your inner personality coming out. It's great.
Yes, sir.
Feels the same for both of us.
True. I guess so.
The pause. It's great. All right. All right. So I only got one more con here to try to convince you out of being a firm believer in multitasking.
Hey, that's not the point. We're just going over it. If you change my mind, then so be it.
Yeah, it's not, of course.
Wink.
That's
All
always
right.
the point of an argument, right? Just let it go. It's okay.
I need to know the cons so then I can be fully rounded in my knowledge of multitasking.
Exactly.
There you go.
Well, then I only got one more for you, and that is burning out. Again, something that can really affect the average user of multitasking.
Right.
Because it's something where they're not going to really keep track of this. They're going to try to do multiple high energy tasks at the same time, right? And we see this a lot with procrastination, which is a huge problem. And this is why people can crash and burn, is because they're going to do multiple essays in one night, for say, and you can't do that, right? Or you can, you're going to get through the first couple of them, or you might be successful one semester in that, and then the next semester it's going to come back and haunt you, right? So burning out is a very real problem that we can see, because you are going to either not have a good estimation of how much time you really need. Again, talking about time being that non-renewable resource, because you don't realize how far away you can get from time.
Yeah.
And you'll just straight up just run out of it. And there's also you just running out of that energy. Whereas you could take the time to rest, but if your window was too tight, you're going to run into issues. You're going to burn out from that.
Okay, so I was going to say that this could just be as a result of people not using rest properly, but then on top of that, it's the people are unintentionally using multitasking, like we were just talking about, because they think that they can do 3 essays in one night. But if they understand that multitasking is going to lower the quality of the essay itself, they should start focusing on maybe splitting that up in 3 days instead of just one night.
Yeah.
So this is where that problem of multitasking itself really falls on the person knowing what their end result is going to end up being.
Right.
And if they should really go about multitasking or not. Because when we talk about multitasking, I'm like, yeah, sure, I can do it. But I'm not conscious of all these cons that could lower the quality, lower my memory, like all these bad things that I can get from multitasking because I didn't know the cons ahead of time. Because we do it unintentionally, it just comes natural to us. We think we can get through it.
Yeah, being so close to the cell phones and computers and whatnot, we feel that we can be a part of that. But real quick, that whole point with burning out, too, just to tie this together here, right? It is going to be separate from low quality result, but it's going to be lowering the quality of your life.
Yeah. Well, because
that's the issue with the burnout, is talking about the long-term burnout, which is going to be, procrastinate, rush work, procrastinate, rush work.
Yeah.
Because if you do 3 essays in a night and you get A's on all of them, good for you. What did you learn?
Nothing. You're just going to do it again, like you said.
Then what was the point of doing it, right? So that's really the bigger threat I see to the burnout, isn't necessarily the physical impact that it can have on you, where you're going to pass out on the train or something because you had to pull an all-nighter, but that long-term effect of, sure, you got all that work done, but it was all on the surface level because you just procrastinated, pushed through it, or you multitasked the whole thing and didn't get the full connections with what you were trying to accomplish, right? Back to the idioms. And you're just going to have a lower quality of life because you're just going to continually rush through everything, try to get as many tasks done as you can instead of taking the time to step back and just monotask and manage your time and focus on everything and really learn everything that you're trying to do.
Yeah, because when you first said burning out, I immediately thought of the episode that we had when we were talking about workaholics, people that just work too much, and how it affects their overall health.
Yeah, and it's the same concept here with burnout just being that overall.
Yeah, I can agree with that one, yeah. But again, it falls on the individual.
All right, so
moving on.
That's it for me. Yeah, we're going over to you now.
All right, let's talk about the good things in life, guys. So the first one, I'm going to have to say it's going to increase efficiency because, like we were saying, doing more things in a set amount of time. If you are focused on honing in on the skill and working on it correctly, it's going to increase efficiency in being able to do more things in less amount of time. So if you had, like we used before, the cooking example, right? You have an hour to cook. You don't want to cook and then have a super messy kitchen and all these dishes you have to wash. Might as well knock 2 birds out with 1 stone. So you're going to cook your food, set the table, you're going to wash the dishes as well, in that hour time that you had to just cook. Do you agree?
I do. With being able to take those prescribed times apart, right? But with increased efficiency, I can see where when you develop this skill that this could be useful, but I feel like there's a lot of diminishing return on that,
Mm-hmm.
especially upfront or for the average person, because if they give themselves an hour to complete those two tasks, right, and they keep switching back and forth, and it takes them, 55 minutes to do it,
Mm-hmm.
or if they just focused on each task individually, and it would just take 30 minutes to do each, and it would be done in an hour anyways. You kind of follow what I'm saying? So it's kind of a misconception where like you think you're doing more because you're not giving yourself that time to rest, but you're not accomplishing much more.
So I'm not as great of a cook as you, and it takes me an hour to cook something. So that's what I'm trying to say. Like if something that originally takes that hour,
Yeah.
like general term an hour, right? There's going to be downtimes in that. If you're waiting for something to cook, if you're waiting to chop something up and
Right.
like the oven to heat up or something, then you can just turn around, do the dishes, and then go back when it's ready.
Right.
So it's like you're kind of still doing the two things. And your point on the blinders, your focus isn't going to be on the dishes all the time because you're going to be mindful of the oven beeping so then you can stick the food in.
Right.
So that's what I'm trying to say. I'm not saying like that one task is going to be 30, the other's going to be 30, and you're saving 5 minutes or 10 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's kind of getting off of the food example though, but I mean, I definitely see what you're saying with utilizing that downtime.
Yeah. So my points are going to be driven on people making that conscious decision of improving multitasking as a skill.
Okay.
All right. So that next one is going to be increased flexibility and adaptability. The ability to adapt to new tasks quicker. So if you're doing something and then like somebody comes into the room and tells you, "Hey, I need you to do this other task really quick. Can you do that?" You're going to be a lot quicker when you start working on the ability to multitask, of being able to pick that up and start doing it, as opposed to if you're just 100% focused on one thing, you're not going to comprehend what that person's saying, or it's going to take you a little bit longer to adjust your brain to click into that field or whatever he's telling you to do to eventually multitask to begin with. Just the better you get at multitasking, the faster that process and that click is going to happen.
Okay. So picking up the newer tasks being assigned to you or something. So like if you're cleaning your room or something, your mom comes in, she's like, "Hey, I need you to take out the trash like right now." You'll be able to stop what you're doing and go do that, and then go back to cleaning your room and pick up where you were better if you were practicing multitasking.
Yeah, it's more of like that mental ability to like you're not going to have a mental delay
Okay.
when something does pop up. Or like if you're washing your car and then something breaks off of it, because you're using like a broom.
I drive a Mitsubishi, so all I got to do is touch it. Yeah.
Yeah, like you're
Things fall off.
you're cleaning your hood, the bumper in the back falls off. Yeah.
I'm used to that.
Yeah. You're not going to have so much of a mental delay to go run, pick that up, like fix it, and then keep washing the car. As opposed to if you're just 100% washing the car, it falls off and you go, "Oh."
Okay.
That's what I'm trying to get with like the ability to adapt to a new task.
Okay. I see that point. I do. I can agree with that, because that adaptability can be really important in other parts of your life, even in the realm of monotasking. It's still great to be able to pick up those alternative things you need to do or make those adjustments where needed. So I agree with you. I actually don't have anything bad to say on that.
So to kind of turn off of that one a little bit, or so to relate to that last point just a little bit, multitasking helps you with other skills in general. So with being able to pick up on like management and learning time management, when you are focusing on this and doing it consciously and not just unintentionally, you can have that like better time management skill, because you're then planning out the multitask. You're going, okay, in an hour and a half, I'm going to do these 3 things, instead of just doing it and then it finishes whenever it finishes. And then not only just the time management side of it, but having the overall awareness when you are at first having the laser focus you were mentioning and that those blinders on. It's like when you're taking a picture of something and you're focused on like a lamp on a table in the living room. When you start improving that skill of the overall awareness, everything else becomes a little bit clearer when you take the focus off. So instead of just being so set on looking at the lamp, now you see the entire living room and how the scene is just portrayed.
Okay, so just the general overall picture is getting better there to. Okay.
Because it's not just a skill that you can improve on alone.
Yeah, it's complementary.
Yeah, it helps other skills to have in your life to better that quality.
So with that being said, though, do you feel that there are people who inherently can't multitask because their supporting skills aren't developed enough to support something like that?
Well, of course, there's going to be people that need to work on other skills before they work on this, because multitasking is a complicated skill to work on regardless. Even for somebody that has good, even for somebody that is great at time management, it's still going to be a little rough for them to get into that mindset of multitasking at the same time and trying to improve that. I'm not saying it's an easy skill to improve multitasking. It takes a lot of time and effort. But with that being said, the last pro that I have here for multitasking is that it is a skill. Instead of just talking about this in general as the verb of multitasking, the action of multitasking, I started talking about it as a skill so that we could understand it that way through this entire conversation, because the pro of it being a skill is that you can always improve it, like I just said. So it's always that positive mindset that you can have towards it, and you're not going to be beaten down in the slums because you can't do it when you think back on what we're talking about. There's going to be people there listening to this and like, oh yeah, I relate with all the cons, but none of the pros.
Right.
Every time I try doing multitasking, it's always trash results for me.
Yeah, it's not a light switch you can just turn on and off.
Yeah, but that's why I wanted to make that a clear statement that it's a skill. Even if it's terrible right now, you can always improve on it.
Yeah, no, that was definitely a good point. I remember when this topic was first pitched, and you brought that up to me, and I never really, I guess, thought about it that way, as foolish as that might sound for us people like us, right? Yeah.
You thought of it just as the action.
Well, I thought of multitasking more of, I don't even know. I just didn't see it as something that really gets development. I saw it as either something you were able to do decently or not. Because I see it a lot in like my workplace. I have some older people that work with us. And man, you cannot, I don't care how much the time frame is in between jobs or something, right? Being a mechanics, working on cars. They'll wait on a part for an hour and a half because they have to. They literally cannot touch another car if they have a car broken apart.
Yeah.
Because they won't remember how to put it back together. So to me, I viewed it more as an inherent thing. Being able to it's like being quick-witted.
Yeah.
Can you develop being quick-witted? It's questionable. You could do little tasks and exercises, but that's how I saw multitasking going into this. Was it's more of a solid thing. You either have the capabilities to be decent at it or be good at it, or you're just bad.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
But I think that's why it's important that we brought up that low quality or the low effort tasks, because you can always start with those. Work on that skill with the low effort tasks and then build up until you can start doing it with things you prioritize more.
I think we had some good points here. So just wrapping up, as we start concluding this here, again, there's so much controversy on this topic, if you'll want to call it that. And obviously you see where we both have two very different viewpoints on what's going on. So just my final selling points is do your best to do everything with purpose, work with purpose, relax with purpose, and focus more on monotasking, in my opinion, right? Because when you're able to do that, I feel that helps you create a stronger structure in your life, because you can focus on work just as much as you can focus on relaxing or exploring. And I personally feel you'll get more fulfillment from your activities, and you'll be able to ultimately complete more things in the long run. You'll have a more meaningful impact on yourself and on everybody around you when you can laser focus.
Yeah, I agree with that. You always want to give the best of your ability to a single task. So to go off with wanting that structured life at the end of this, you should focus more on monotasking, do everything with that purpose. But also you want to develop skills throughout your life. You don't want to just be good at one thing. Learn new skills, take some time, try to work on the skill of multitasking. It will come in handy, and I promise you that. But just to hit you with like that disclaimer one more time, that we're not telling you whether or not you should multitask. That's down to the individual's decision if you think you're capable of doing it, what's that level of importance, and if it's too important of a task, make that conscious decision to just focus on it with that laser focus. We're just giving you that overall information so then it can clear the misconception of everything, of what multitasking is. So you're not sitting here like I was and you were when we first pitched it to each other. Have that full, well-rounded thought process and knowledge of the skill itself. So real quick before we wrap this up fully for you guys, there's this quote that I wanted to talk about real quick by Alexander Graham Bell. And it goes to concentrate all your thoughts upon the work in hand, because the sun's rays do not burn until brought to a focus. What are your thoughts on that?
Give that to me one more time.
Concentrate all your thoughts upon the work in hand, because the sun's rays do not burn until brought to a focus. So like having that magnifying glass to focus on one spot, the sun's going to shine on everything. It's not going to set anything on fire. But once you bring that focus with that magnifying glass, you can catch something on fire with that laser focus of monotasking.
So I guess my concluding thought on that would be sometimes it's good to light up the whole world, warm up the whole world, and other times it's good to just light things on fire.
So that's what we do here at The Motivating Force. We keep that fire lit.
Thank you guys for tuning into this week's episode. Remember to like and share the video. Remember to follow us on Facebook at The Motivating Force and on Instagram at PodcastTMF. Definitely go over there and at least check out the costumes we had on during the shoot today. Very interesting, very distracting, great to the point of our show. And while you're here on YouTube, make sure you subscribe and hit that bell icon if you haven't done so already. It would mean so much to us. Our segment coming out this Wednesday is going to be a free talk, and it's going to be a great discussion just about the future of the show and some other random topics that we feel like discussing. So make sure you check that out as well. And don't forget, all of our weekly drives drop every Monday at 8 a.m. EST. Now go on and get